Start with the new topic: time, work, and speed. Time, work, and speed. This topic you have to see. Then, whatever be the example related to this time, work, and speed, these examples are which type of variation that you have to see. I will say that I will explain few points, and according to that you have to decide the given example is of the inverse variation or the direct variation. The example related to the number of workers and time taken to finish the work are of the inverse variation. If the number of workers are more at that time, they will complete the work in very short time. If the number of workers are less at that time, they required the more days to complete the work. So the number of workers and day related problems are the inverse type of the variation. Then next type is the example related to the speed of the vehicle and the time required to cover the distance. Means if the speed is more at that time, time required to complete the distance is very less. If the speed is less at that time, time required to complete the distance to cover the distance is more. So this is also the inverse type of the variation. Then next example is the number of pages of the book read each day and the number of days required to finish the book. Means if you will read the more pages each day at that time within very short time or within very less days, you will complete that book. If the number of pages you will read more at that time, you will require the less days, and if you will read the less number of pages at that time, you will require the more days. Means this example is also the inverse type of the variation. Then the example, the certain amount to distribute between the number of students. If the number of students are less at that time, the each will get the more amount, and if the number of students are more at that time, each will get the less amount. Means this is also the inverse type of variation. Means this type of the example 1, 2, 3, 4 types of the example are of the inverse type of the variation. So I will start with the short example of your textbook. The 15 women finished the work of the harvesting of the groundnut crop in 8 days. Then how many women if the same job to be completed in 6 days? Means in short I will say that if number of women I will represent by W, number of days required I will represent by D. If the number of women are 15 at that time, within 8 days they will finish the work. But if you want to finish the same work, and if the number of women same work within the 6 days, at that time how many women will finish that work in 6 days? Means I will say that 15 women will complete the piece of work in 8 days. Then 6 women, means if you want to finish that work within the 6 days, at that time how many women will finish that work in 6 days, that you have to find out. So I will say that number of women are inversely varies with the number of days. So I will say that W is inversely proportional to D. W is equal to, you have to remove the proportionality sign, K into 1 upon D. You have to find out the value of K when W is equal to 15 and D is equal to 8. You have to find out K. You have to put this W is equal to 15 and D is equal to 8 in above equation, means equation of variation. W is equal to K into 1 upon D. The 15 is equal to K into 1 upon D. Transpose this divided by D, divided by 8 from right side to left side, divided by 8 becomes multiplied by 8. 15 multiplied by 8 is equal to K. Then 120 is equal to K. Therefore you have to say that K is equal to 120. K is called as the constant of variation. If K is equal to 120 and D is equal to 6, when K is equal to 120 and D is equal to 6, you have to find out W is equal to question mark. You have to put this value of K and D in the equation of variation. W is equal to K into 1 upon D. So W is equal to, value of K is 120 multiplied by 1 upon 6. Then this becomes 120 multiplied by 1 is equal to 120 divided by 6. So you will give the division. 6 1 are 6. 6 20s are, therefore W is equal to 20 will come. Therefore you have to say that if the number of women's, not workers, if the number of women's are 20, then they will complete the same job in 6 days. In this way, you have to solve the inverse variation problem of the work and wages. I think you understand this problem. Write this example in the classwork notebook properly. Thank you.